Hi, I'm Hajo Eicken with the International Arctic Research Center at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I'd like to share with you a brief summary of a collaborative study that examined potential connections between bottom-up and top-down approaches in environmental observing, with a focus on the Arctic, but including a review of global scale programs. The work focused primarily on the role of sustained observations in informing responses to rapid Arctic change. And our team in particular examined the question of how to foster better connections and linking between bottom-up community-driven and top-down regional or global scale observing efforts. The work included a literature review of 124 sustained observing activities all across the globe, as well as a series of workshops in Arctic countries to bring in community expertise, and a survey of 30 Arctic community-based monitoring programs. Top-down global frameworks for observing are often quite familiar to researchers in the scientific community, the university community, or with government agencies because they typically link large-scale questions or system-type questions with respect to climate assessment or other assessments, wildlife, and plant cover, for example, to particular scientific observations of variables such as essential climate variables. Bottom-up community-driven observing efforts focus and address community priorities, such as the focus on community health or community sustainability, and they typically also directly inform planning and response at the community level, whether it's hazard assessment and mitigation or climate change adaptation. Our study also illustrated the importance of indigenous and local knowledge in serving as a bridge or a potential interface between these two different scales and approaches to sustained observing efforts. And you can see here at the bottom of the diagram as well that at these different scales, you typically find different types of processes observed or monitored, as well as different priorities. And so in this work, we in particular focused on the question of what are good practices that have been identified by community-driven efforts or larger scale programs, and in recognizing these good practices, in turn also identifying challenges that prevent positive desired outcomes from these observing efforts, as well as identifying interventions or approaches that can be put in place to overcome these challenges. This figure just illustrates two of these challenges out of a set of total of 6. The upper one is an important one, and that relates to mismatches in the aims and scales of observing activities. For example, with larger scale government-driven assessments as opposed to community scale programs that are often focused on management of local resources. And in the paper that I'll provide you a link to at the end here, we also include a more in-depth discussion of different types of interventions that can help better align both the broader aims and the scales of these observing efforts. Another similar type of mismatch occurs in terms of priorities. What specific variables or aspects or processes at a particular scale are of greatest interest to those who are potentially benefiting from these observations. This type of challenge, again, is addressed through a number of interventions or approaches, which we discuss in more detail in our broader study. For example, the concept of shared variables, variables that both satisfy or meet priorities at the global and the local or regional scale, can help better align priorities, as can broader concepts such as the concept of food security in terms of ensuring strong alignment of priorities and ensuring that observations are both meaningful and needed. So the key takeaway from this work is that linking of these bottom-up and top-down frameworks directly enhances the value and the utility of information products that are derived from such sustained observations. And it also increases and enhances the observing program's efficiency and its sustainability in the long run. If you want to explore these findings in more detail, I would refer you to a special section in the journal BioScience on environmental monitoring that will come out in May of 2021. That includes a series of papers focused on topics that are only briefly covered here in this presentation. Thank you.